Good evening, and welcome to the Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union meeting. It is Tuesday, June 6th. If you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
to
the republic for which it stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
We need to add, motion by Mike, and we need to add under leave requests, Jen Heath, GRCSU para.
With the addition.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Public comment. Is there any public present that wants to speak this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to minutes. Approval of the May 2nd minutes. Our motion would be in order.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike, discussion.
On page 13, it said, and I don't have it in front of me because I can't get online, but it says that I don't think a motion to accept A1 and pass it on to local boards was actually passed, as it says it was. I may be wrong, but I believe we sent A1 back to policy committee, which it does say later, but I don't remember it being passed on page 13.
Well, it's recorded there was a motion by me to go ahead and send it back.
But it wasn't passed unanimously. Because I know I didn't vote for it. I think we started discussing it. And then we ended up sending it back to the policy committee.
I don't think we actually voted on, we ended up, like Tina said, just sending it.
Okay, so you just want to
Strike that.
redact the first motion?
Well, Mike did make the motion, but then it wasn't, after the brief discussion, Lisa called the vote and the motion passed unanimously. It didn't happen, so I would just remove that.
But if we didn't vote on it, then the motion dies.
It did die. And then later on, it was sent to policy
That's what I'm
committee.
saying, so we can just take that first part out. So, we could just remove the first part, the first motion.
I'm fine with that if Mike's fine with it. It was his motion. I didn't know if you wanted to keep it in the record, because it was made.
It was part of the record, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay,
I don't see any reason to remove it, whatever.
okay.
So then, we're just removing the second half, or, I wasn't sure what you said, Mike, sorry.
I said, it was part of the record because it actually happened, the
Right.
motion happened. So
But
why
just
would
not
we
the
take it out?
vote. I agree with you.
Right,
So I think just the vote should be taken out, because that didn't happen.
So from Lisa called the vote?
Or just after, that whole sentence, after the brief discussion below, Lisa called the vote and the motion passed unanimously. Or maybe it just needs to, I'm not really sure. I see what you're saying, because
Well, the action of the board was to send it back, so that was the
Yeah.
action.
You just say he made the motion, it was not voted on, it was decided to send it back.
It was, I think, I don't remember if you took it back, Mike, or not, but it did die, and then later on page 14, it has the motion that ended up happening. So yeah, I think we could just take out after the brief discussion below, Lisa called the vote and the motion passed unanimously. Because that did not happen.
Yeah, so that's more accurate.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So from that sentence on, we'll remove it.
Just that sentence, yeah. After the brief discussion below, Lisa called the vote and the motion passed unanimously.
So we're just leaving the very first sentence.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it didn't end up getting voted on, but
Okay.
he may have, I don't remember if he redacted, or he took it back or not.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Approval of warrants. Receive your warrants through your GRCSU email. All questions should be directed to Lewis. A motion would be in order for approval of the warrants.
That motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Superintendent's report.
Thanks, Lisa. So in the report, there's a lot of information here that is meant just for informational only. The only thing I would highlight is just around the final legislative update that has been delayed. That kind of explains why, because June 20th is a veto session. So we anticipate hopefully having a legislative update ready for the SU board at our July board meeting. So I'll keep you posted on that. So if there are any questions on my report, I'll take that. I also wanted to use this time to review the strategic plan draft with the board as well. So I'll be sharing that in a second. So are there any questions on the report itself? Okay. So I will, let me share this.
Is Meredith here for Amanda?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry for the flashing on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to just work through your slides. Those who are in person, I did have a hard copy for you to take a look at. Those who are joining us online, at the end of this meeting, I can share a hard copy with you after, if you would like. So I'll do that at the end of this meeting. So over the past 2 years, the GRCSU has been working with Battelle for Kids, an organization that's has worked with a lot of other districts and SUs in the state of Vermont, as well as nationally, in developing 2 parts. The first part was the Portrait of Graduate, and the second part was the strategic plan. So we've been, last year, the primary focus was developing what was called our Portrait of Graduate. And at our last June, during our GRCSU board meeting, we presented the Portrait of Graduate to everyone, and it was approved at that time. And I put this last bullet just to remind, because if people look at the portrait and they, the first thing that people always say is, well, there's no mention of academics. Academics is kind of a given. Whenever you're doing a strategic plan or a school improvement plan or a thing like that, academics is always going to be there. That's a primary focus of what we do in education. So in this particular case, the portrait is really meant to complement academics and achievement scores as measured of preparedness. What we're really trying to do is understand that that's one particular component, that's one facet.
I think George's mic is on, and I'm getting feedback. Other people probably are too. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Meredith. It looks like George is going to keep it there. So the Portrait of Graduates is really meant to complement the work we're doing around academics. It's meant to really look at the whole child, and that's what you'll see, or you have seen, that the 5 competencies that we settled on really are meant to give us a well-rounded approach in terms of what a graduate or what a student leaves the SU. These are the qualities, the values, the competencies that we would like for them to have. And this is an example, this is the Portrait of Graduate that you have all seen, and I know that outside of the colors and the graphic, that's really we want to focus on just the 5 competencies around adaptability, communication, critical thinking, empathy, and responsibility. As we moved into this fall, so we moved into the strategic planning phase, and really what kind of anchored the plan was what we call the 5 guiding tenets. We had our GRCSU vision, which is our desired future, the mission, which is what are we hoping to accomplish. We then had the core value competencies, what we believe that was back in the Porter graduate. And we did a lot of discussion around the goals, what we strive to achieve, and the strategic initiatives, how we plan to achieve our goals. And just, I know we have a lot of, we have new board members, we have individuals who may not have seen our core values, but here is a copy of our vision and mission. It is centered around the acronym of LEAD, Learn, Explore, Aspire, and Discover. The vision and mission were adopted during the merger 5 years ago. And as we go through this process, I think it may be something which, the SU board may want to take a look at to see this summer or the following summer if we still believe that this is our vision, this is our mission, or if we feel we should be altering this or change this in any way. But right now, this is the vision and mission that we have in place. That is one of those guiding tenets. And the mission, for those who can't read this or have a hard time seeing it, it's just the core mission of the GRCSU is to create an engaged learning community by empowering students to learn independently and collaboratively, explore their own passions and choose their own pathways, aspire to achieve success, and discover their own roles as contributing members of local and global communities. As we moved in the process, like I said, we spent the better part of this year working on this strategic plan draft that you're seeing here tonight. It was a collaborative process. Last year we had a Porter graduate design team, and this year we had a strategic plan design team. And a lot of the members of the Porter graduate design team decided to stay on for a second year. There were some new individuals. So we reached out in the fall, people who decided to be a part of this. There are some people who chose not to move on for a second year. But it has a wide variety. But it was comprised of central office and building administrators, GRCSU staff members and teachers, parents, community members, students, as well as school board members. Every one of these stakeholders groups, people had an opportunity to participate, and some took advantage of that, while others chose to, provide input in other ways. And there were a lot of people who just decided, you know what, I trust the group that's doing it, and so we'll see what they come up with. There were 4 primary strategic plan design team meetings this year, and this is where the large group came together. We met at West Rutland, and a representative, it was Jessica Harding, who would fly from Virginia to work with us, meet with us. We had October 3rd, November 7th, February 6th, and April 4th. And then separate of that, the GRCSU strategic plan writing team, which is comprised of central office administrators, building administrators, as well as individuals within our respective, staff or community that are experts who could provide more of a nuanced perspective on something. So it might be bringing like a speech language pathologist. We might ask them for their input on something, or someone has a very specific focus around MTSS or literacy or math. And so the individual will provide input as we work through this. But the writing team met 8 times from between February and April 23rd, between half-day and full-day work sessions. So a lot of time was put into this draft between the large group, which is the design team, and the strategic plan writing team. Through all this work, we then settled on 3 priority areas. And we have academic success, school climate and culture, and then community engagement and communication. These are 3 large, pretty, areas. They're not very narrow in focus, but you'll see that as we identify goals, strategic initiatives, we kind of will narrow that down. But there's a lot in each of these areas, and I think the hardest thing for us was trying to prioritize within each of these areas what we really want to kind of tackle. And I think our design team did a nice job of that. And there are a lot of drafts and redrafts and thoughts and perspectives being provided. So moving into the plan. So the first priority, or academic success, we have our first goal, which was to improve academic achievement and student growth at all grade levels in the areas of literacy and math. We have 7 strategic initiatives that were born out of this goal, and that's implement and refine a coordinated curriculum, transition to a structured literacy approach in science of reading and writing or literacy across the content areas, embed research-based best practices in mathematics instructional approaches across GRCSU schools, develop and implement a comprehensive and balanced assessment system to provide data on the effectiveness of curriculum instruction, develop a multi-year comprehensive professional development plan, both school-based as well as district and SU-based, research, design, and implement a developmentally appropriate middle school approach with a common philosophy across GRCSU schools, and strengthen the systems and practices within MTSS to best support our students. I can take questions, as you go through each area, or just when we move through, or
I think as we go through, so people don't, it doesn't get lost, so.
are there any questions on the first goal, or?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, we'll move on to the second.
I have one quick question. When you say appropriate middle school approach, is that certain grades?
So that's be part of it, is where to define
That's
what.
part of what
Correct.
you're determining?
Because I think when you look at middle school, there are many people who believe it's 5 through 8, 5 through 9, 6 through 8, 6 through 9. So I think that's part of,
What you're
our
trying to
research,
figure
we
out.
look at where's that band of students.
Thank you.
And I think we're looking at right now in some of our schools, we have a junior high approach, which is just that 7th and 8th grade. We're looking at, can we, expand that and do a better job of really meeting the needs for those students within that critical, age band. So, but I said there'll be a lot of discussion around that in terms of what that band, where you settle on that band. Because I know Rutland Town has a 5 through 8, but other schools see it as 7 through 8, and so we have a lot of work to do there. Okay. The second goal under academic success, we have expand enrichment and post-secondary opportunities for all pre-K through 12th grade students. Excuse me, we have 5 initiatives here. Embed service learning and community service opportunities within course curricula. And within this, even if it's not stated here, we also are going to explore whether or not that should be a graduation requirement as well. That's something which will be discussed, so it's not just going to fall within curricula, but that's something that we really want to take a look at. And I just want to say this because I know that service learning, community service can be 2 separate things. But we really want to, we like the idea of community service, but we discussed service learning and the transformative approach that, so if a student develops kind of action-based planning and they go out and they assist, they help in the community, it has this more of a transformational impact on that student than, say, just doing 20 hours. So it's something which we are really looking at what that looks like and how we can kind of expand that for our students. And that is going to be, you'll see with community partnerships, it's part of that link there as well. We are looking at to increase student access to existing enrichment programming, as well as expand enrichment program offerings across all GRCSU schools. This next one is kind of a wordy way of saying pathways, but we have create a sustainable, comprehensive career development program that empowers students in the GRCSU schools to envision and pursue their own successful journeys through high school and after graduation, which is just like I said, pathways. And the last is develop global and cultural intelligence in all students, awareness of an individual's impact on the world, civic responsibility. Any questions on goal 2? Okay. The third goal, improve and expand continuum of services for special education students to include GRCSU-based alternative programming options to meet the range of needs of learners across GRCSU schools. You'll see there are 2 initiatives, but they're they're large initiatives. So they're, don't be fooled by their only 2 bullets. There's a lot there. We're looking at develop, pilot, and implement alternative programs for students, as well as improve existing programs to better meet the needs of all students. And you will see that at the last GRCSU board meeting, the GRCSU board did approve a program that falls within that first bullet. So we already are in year 1 with that bullet already, on a trial phase. So. All right. Any questions on goal 3? All right, moving into school climate culture, the second priority area. The first goal was hire, retain, and build the capacity of highly effective staff members. Our initiatives were increase collective staff job satisfaction, hire highly effective applicants, cultivate staff leadership within the GRCSU, promote the GRCSU and its schools as innovative and rewarding workplaces through production of school and SU-based multimedia, and increase opportunities to celebrate and acknowledge staff contributions and achievements.
Can you promote the GRCSU and its schools as innovative and rewarding workplaces through the production of school and SU-based multimedia?
So,
I mean, to offer?
yeah, so I think when we discussed, what we were looking at is, while we understand that their salaries are one reason why an employee would come to work. I mean, that's the reality of the world. But there are also employees who will choose to work at a different location, and they may take a lower salary because it's a place they feel that inspires them. It's a place they really want to work at, and maybe the culture is more appropriate for where they're at. And so we have some very positive things in our schools, and so our goal is to how do we do a better job of promoting that and letting people know, that working at, say, Rutland Town or Poldy Elementary or Proctor High School or whoever it may be, Middletown Springs, any one of these schools, that here's the culture, here's what we're doing here, and whether or not people want to be a part of that.
How do you really bring us together, truly, as GRCSU?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
because that's a good one.
Like I said, I think people, the first thing they say is, well, how much does it pay? And then I think that's,
Yep.
but we also look at retaining individuals too. It's, like I said, we have to find a way to keep them as well. We get, great staff in, but we have to look at the culture within the building. How do we keep these
Yeah,
staff
because it
members
does
in the building?
become a culture within the building. You're right. I like that a lot. Thank you.
Any other questions on?
I guess in that sense,
Yeah.
how do you, achieving that would be fantastic across the SU, but then how do you levitate, if it's the same culture building to building, why wouldn't I jump for the most money? Are we gonna, is SU gonna try to have competitive salaries across the board?
Well, I think, the reality is, well, one, we're all in the same master agreement, for teachers and support staff, so we do have that, with there. I think the question that we have is, how do we build an SU culture, but also within each of our schools, this has always been the kind of we honor local traditions, but we also celebrate differences as well. That there be things that, like, go back to Rutland Town or Poldy Elementary, or we'll do differently, and that's okay. That they don't have to be necessarily always in lockstep. So there are certain things that, say, Rutland Town will do a little bit differently than Poldy Elementary, but we can promote that, and we can build upon that, and so. Yep. Our goal is not to create just 6 of the same schools, but as we look at, there's a common thread that runs through all of our schools in terms of what that culture is like. Does that make sense? The second goal, improve students' well-being and daily experience in our schools. We settled on increasing opportunities for students to learn strategies to improve their well-being, increase access to meaningful and relevant programs and learning experiences for all students, expand authentic involvement of students in school-based programming, and increase opportunities to celebrate, acknowledge student contributions and achievements. So there's a lot that can be done under these 4 initiatives as well. Question on goal number 2? All right, moving on. The third priority area, and the priorities are not any ranked in order of importance, just how they're listed. We're community engagement communication. Our first goal, provide clear and consistent communication within and from our GRCSU schools. The first initiative is develop a systematic communication throughout the supervisory unit and its communities. So we look at, obviously, like a communication plan, what that may look like across the SU. And we're also looking at increasing school staff digital proficiency. And the group talked about this, I think, in terms of how do we highlight some of the things that we're doing. So just, we understand that there's some certain people who respond to papers, so we'll send out a newsletter and we'll have a mailer that goes home. Other students or families are looking at, say, TikTok, or they're looking at a Facebook page or other social media, or we're looking at through YouTube. There are a variety of ways that we can highlight the things that we're doing in our school, but we have to look at it, how do we reach those families and our community members in terms of celebrating that. But in order to do that, we also have to just make sure we're increase that digital proficiency. We have talked about, we look at our way our websites are currently handled, that outside of one school, really we have one person who's kind of overseeing that, and we really need to build up capacity that really websites are managed on site, but, and so how that was handled, so you really can have more of a real-time feel to those websites where if someone's trying to gain information on what's happening this afternoon, or if there's a change to an athletic schedule, it really becomes more functional for families and community members. Yes.
To what extent are we tracking or capturing any data from media we're putting out? Any?
Our tech coordinator, so, Greg Connors has a list, and we can actually, if you want, we can see what, I can have that report for the next meeting if you like, more in terms of like what websites, in terms of who's coming to the website, what the frequency is. We have numbers on that. We do find that around athletic seasons, that's when you'll see a lot of individuals will go to the page because they want to see like, oh, what time's game night?
Schedule, yeah.
Where that's at. I know that in the past, he's seen people from outside. I know that typically right around school choice time, we will see individuals who will be going to the web, to our websites to see, well, let's see what, Proctor has or Poultney or West Rutland, or as individuals who are coming from tuition choice districts like Middletown and Wells or other places, and maybe looking to go into Rutland Town to see, well, what does Rutland Town look like for 7th and 8th grade. So there's an ebb and flow, but I could ask Greg to prepare a report. We can take a look at that if you'd like.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we seem to track every piece of information on kids' data. Like, this would be useful to
Right.
maybe incorporate it into some high school programming or high school. We obviously don't have a lot of resources, but
Yep. No, that's a great
high
idea.
school kids to say, hey, well, this is a real life job of tracking data. Is it effective? Should we be doing something different?
Well, that's a great point. I think it's something which we did talk about where, we're thinking about the adults in the building, but really the experts are our students. They're more digitally proficient than many of our staff are. And how can we, parlay that?
They sure are.
So,
Yeah.
and so, whether it be developing courses that would, or, center around this, I know that's, we've talked before about, do we create like a TV/media station? So we're doing our morning announcements, becomes a tech, like a real live TV studio, but that's something which we're thinking about down the road, but also something is, it's not just myself sitting on there trying to, update the webpage. It really could be a student who is doing that, but a lot of the kids will sit there and say, well, nobody really checks the webpage. That's not where they're going for information, so we might find another avenue for one of our students. But I think that's our goal, really is, we want to make sure that we are reaching our community members, our stakeholders in avenues of formats that are most appropriate. So we do know a lot of people in our communities don't have internet, and so they're relying upon just like I said, a paper we talked about as an SU having a biannual GRCSU newsletter that goes out to everyone in the SU, which kind of highlights some of the things we're doing. So there's a variety of different things we can do. Any other questions on goal 1? All right. Goal 2, ensure meaningful engagement with parents and students. Obviously engage our families in meaningful communication. There are many different ways of doing that, as we've just been discussing. Provide opportunities for student voice and agency. We do believe that's important, that we, give our students an opportunity to have say, not just, whether it be on, courses, course selections, what their role is within the school-based selections or, district-based, but, having students have a voice. We looked at different leadership models that we could engage in, but there's a variety of things we've taken a look at with that. And then the last was develop effective learning-focused practices that connect families to educational outcomes and goals of students. Any questions? I believe this is our last goal for communication. So strengthening community partnership and involvement that provides students with life, academic, career, and service learning opportunities. So the initiatives engage all stakeholders in conversations and action planning around how collectively we can support students in schools. We have a variety of ways we're looking at with that. Establish safe and respectful communication expectations between schools, families, and communities. Cultivate relationships with a wide range of community organizations and stakeholders. And provide all parents and families flexible opportunities to participate in student-centered activities. Okay. So then the next steps, we have a lot of these steps. So if the board would approve of the strategic plan draft tonight, the administrators, staff members, so the design or the writing team would go back and we start doing the procedural pieces, which we've done a lot of this already, but we've held off because we just want to make sure that that the board is okay with us moving this direction. But we would solidify timelines, personnel involved. We look at professional learning. We're also looking at performance measures. If there are costs involved, then we look at budgeting impacts. We also, we talked about ESSER, the use of ESSER funds, and, at least next year. So there are a lot of discussions that we'll have around this. And our goal would be that implementation would begin, we put late summer, early fall of 2023. So when students are back to school, we would be ready to go. And then we also look at a progress report cycle. In terms of, we have, our first report would be December 5th at GRCSU board meeting. We'd have our second report April 2nd, and our third report would be July 2nd. And what we could also additionally do is, and Lisa, Madison and I were talking about this today, at the September board meeting, we could also provide a more detailed look at year one to the GRCSU board if they would like that as well. So you see the initiatives, you see the goals, but we would just provide you with, here are the goals, here are the initiatives for year one, here's how we're going to.
Do you have enough staff to, I mean, this is a lot. Do you feel that, do you need more people to help you? I just look at this and think, this is a great strategic plan. I have no problem adopting, voting. It's a lot. It's, I trust you, and to do that, I just hope you have enough people to, you got the culture, we've been doing this for a while, to try to pull the culture together is a hard one. We, in our own area sometimes, even though we talk about being together, sometimes we do tend to look at our area. So, yeah, I love this. I think it's great. I just hope you have, that if you need more people that to help you to pull this out, that you're volunteer. I don't know.
So, one, this is a 5-year plan.
Oh, it's
so
5 year.
If we were doing this, just try next year, one would be insane.
5-year plan, that's great.
But I
Thank you.
think
Okay.
that's our goal really is,
Okay.
and as we're looking at this, and that was the discussion we had at our design teams, a lot of us are thinking, hey, we'd love to have this happen now, but we also, it's a slow process. And we talk about the middle school, there will be some good discussions around, around what that age band may be, but what the appropriate, approaches are, what sort of, the model we have it currently in place within some of our schools, is that appropriate? There's a lot there, but we look at 5 years down where that may be in terms of, it could be, set a recommendation for a different model within Quarry Valley, or we look at our SU. So that's part of what as we discuss this within the large group design team as well as in the writing team, you're right, there is a lot there. And as we see on the back end, as we fill out like project management, there's a lot that needs to be moved, but we have to understand, we have to be mindful of, we're not going to do this all right away. And so we have to be patient with this and understand it's a process, that this is where we're going, but we have to do it in incremental steps that make logical sense, because we look at all of us have jobs to do. This falls within that, but we're not going to just throw a bunch of stuff, to our admins, to our staff and say, here, go make it work, go make it happen. We have to be, smart and pragmatic about where we're going to be, but also understanding that this is where we're moving and we're going to get there.
Well, and some of these things are already happening.
Correct.
They're just not happening with the level of consistency across the SU. They're happening isolated in some buildings. So part of it is just changing that mindset
Correct.
before we can even move further. So
Right.
it's not like a lot. Most of this, other than the special ed piece, are incredibly new ideas to us. It's just how we're kind of laying them out and working together with them.
And our goal, and we understand that, having been through this process many times during my educational career, we understand that after year one, we sit back, we look to see where we're at. There will be adjustments that may be made, in terms of, we've come further than we thought we were, so we can adjust some things, or it's taken us on a different path. But that's where the progress report would be, the board would be kept in a loop in terms of, here's where we're at, and at the end of next year, just as a curriculum cycle, as a teacher at the end of the year looks and says, well, how do we do, what adjustment need to be made? The writing team would be doing the same thing, and we look at what pivots we need to make. There's like I said, there's a lot there, you're right, but we also have to be mindful, we can't just, go after, just try to do it all in 1 year or 2 years. It's just, because it won't work.
A couple questions.
Yep.
And this, just a nitpicking, like, on the progress report aspect of a few things, how, and I'm not looking for you to answer it, but develop global and cultural intelligence, how are we gonna quantify that? And what are other places doing too that are actually seeing progress, or how do you quantify progress in that area?
Right.
I've grown up here my entire life, and that aspect hasn't changed a whole lot. And
Right, and I think that's, you're right, and it's one of the,
and it's awesome.
one of the discussions we have to have, that we're gonna, there's a, quantitative versus qualitative analysis. I think what we take a look at is, it could be around enrichment programming, in terms of course offerings that we're offering within our schools that may help shift that. You're right. I mean, we understand that, in our communities, every school exists within a bubble, but some bubbles are a little bit bigger than others, whether it be here or anywhere else. But we've talked about how do we look to expand that for our students, and what's age appropriate as well. And so how we measure that's one of the discussions that we as a group will have is, how do we know then a kid who is graduating, walking across stage, whether it be an 8th grade level or, a senior in high school, that, okay, that we can check that off, like, okay, they're where they're at, so. You're right, there's not like a test, like I said, when we look at growth in math or, English or literacy, you can measure that with there's a quantitative piece to that, but some of these are qualitative. It's like school culture as well. There are other components we have to, take a look at with that, so.
Meredith, George, did you have any questions? Jeff?
I do not.
I don't have a question. When you first started this school culture thing, of course you had to present parts of it. I really feel a tremendous emphasis needs to be placed on mental health, not just of staff, but student mental health. I know it's more hopefully a short-term issue, but long-term it's going to support, the school climate in a way that will make it a better place to work.
Yeah, Meredith, thank you. And I think that is on our minds in terms around and I think that's where that first bullet point, where we look at, to further well-being. Well-being is a pretty vague term. It's pretty, it's all-encompassing. So I think as we build out what that looks like, I think you'll see a lot of, SEL components to that around student well-being. We do see that that's just the reality, that we have students in our schools who are struggling, and staff, and individuals in their community. So how do we support all those stakeholders with well-being? So.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, did you have any questions or comments?
Thank you for asking. There's a lot going on here, and it's really, I really appreciate all this. It's I think fundamentally, as long as that, all of these goals, Chris and everybody, they align with and not supersede, but also align with just, hey, proficiency and the kind of the rudimentary stuff, like better education at an economic value for the kids, and then all this stuff is great. And I hope, my hope is that, it's not really a question, it's a statement. My hope is that it all kind of falls together, if that's idealistic or not.
No, I think that's our hope too, Jeff. So you're right. I mean, you're right. I mean,
Thank you.
I think we talked about this before. It's like a mosaic. When you look at a piece individually, like how does this really fit? But when it all comes together, then you know that's where that portrait of graduate and this at the end of that. I think that's where you'll see how it all fits, where it's all working toward. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Eric, comments?
No, I just, as part of the strategic plan and the portrait of graduate design team, a lot of the discussions that we had, some of those conversations I see in these goals, and I think it, it's come together pretty well.
Mike?
I'll let the world know what we're doing.
Okay. Tim, anything?
No, it's good.
Right.
A lot of moving principals around in different schools, like invite a principal to come and spend the day at a school and have that principal move over to the other school. Sometimes changing the culture means actually moving people out of their culture.
So what we've done through instructional leadership is we have our admins have gone, so like, let's say just like the Corey Valley admins, so our West Rutland and Proctor High School and Polton High School principal will meet, they kind of alternate, at each of their schools, and they'll do walkthroughs, and they'll take a look at, and they're really, it's to, it's for their own personal growth around crafting feedback and what high quality instruction and student learning look like. And so, and part of the discussions that naturally occurs around culture and what they see and how they'd approach. So we are doing that already, where we have individuals moving, where we have the Wells elementary principal, the Wellsville school principal will be meeting with Polton Elementary, Proctor Elementary, and Rutland Town. And so you'll have Rutland Town, they'll be down at Wells when they are up at Rutland Town. So I think it's good to see what's going on as well, because sometimes you do operate within that vein. That becomes your all you know, but when you kind of get out a little bit. And the CEL work that we've been doing with our admin, and we're actually looking to do a year 3, which would be good to continue our growth with the admin team. We have actually not just within our SU, but also gone to other districts and looked at gone to other schools and engaged in conversations as well, so you can see what other schools are doing, how they handle things.
Yeah, I'm a big blower upper sometimes, and maybe that gets me into trouble, but it does. But sometimes pulling somebody right out of, it's like sending someone to China. A child over to China, you know what I mean? You really, in order to get that person to look at a different culture, you almost have to stick them in there and say, how about you're the principal with the principals beside you, but today you're the principal in West Rutland, or you're the teacher teaching 5th grade in West Rutland instead of 5th grade in Polteny. Principals and teachers, don't hate me, but I'm just thinking that, sometimes you do those really wild things to change, to really become united, when you can walk in a person's shoes and see what it's like to be there for an entire day. To say, hi, I'm your sub teacher today. I'm a 5th grade teacher from Polteny High School, and your teacher has gone to Polteny and she's teaching my kids in Polteny today, and I have your sub plans. And we're going to you know, we're going to wear tags just so I can call you by name and stuff. And, you know, just really put somebody in a position to look at that we become we really do become Greater Rutland County or Quarry Valley, where we actually, you know, like I said, it could be a very crazy idea, but I'm just thinking of how sometimes people change when they go to a different country or go to a different state and they learn about the culture and the people there. Sometimes we get stuck in so anyway, it's just a thought.
Any of the principals that participated in this, Jen, Joe, Jay, have anything you'd like to add or comment about? I know you were all active members at the meetings and then on writing teams and like that, so.
I think I'd just like to chime in and say that it was a really collaborative effort between the evenings that we spent and then the writing team. I think a lot of perspectives were taken in, realizing that there is a lot of work to be done, but I think that this will allow us to have more of a kind of a guiding beacon to head towards. So I think it's a pretty good plan.
Thank you. Jen?
Sorry, I'm just leaving our Proctor game. I agree with what Jay said. I do think that it is a lofty plan, but I wouldn't want anything less for our kids than high goals that we can try to achieve. And like with all plans, we have to reassess when things are working or when they're not. But my own kids are in this district, and I wouldn't want anything less for them.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, I agree with both of what they've said, especially the collaborative effort. I know, it was nice that we're sitting here looking at it through, well, except for Jay, but we're looking at it through a high school lens, a middle school, high school lens, and to get the perspective of the elementary people and vice versa. So I think, it's going to be a lot of work, but hopefully, again, if we just keep our eyes on the goal, I think it'll be decent.
Thank you. Bill, anything to add?
No, I just want to say it was a real collaborative process. It was really nice to have all the admins together and work. We had separate working groups, so I think everybody was heard. I think that's the most important thing, and the other most important thing is we're all moving together forward.
Thank you. All right, Lisa?
Exactly.
Okay.
I just wanted to add that, like Eric said, I really did see the comments from the strategic design plan team implemented into here, and I also think that the writing design team did a great job making everything concise, easy to follow, and a lot of hope. So, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the process whatsoever, but I'd echo that a lot of good work went into the strategic team as well as the writing team to put this together. I had the opportunity to be involved in the city schools doing the same thing with Patel, and the collaboration's great, just hearing a lot of people's input, but to take that, conceptualize it, and put it in this kind of packet is not easy, and probably included a lot of hours of work, so, and a lot of hours of work ahead of you guys, so very good job. I just got to sit in the silence and throw out ideas, so it doesn't come out looking like this, so good work. With that, I would I guess I'd put a motion out to approve the draft.
To adopt the strategic plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
What you said. I'll make a motion.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I have one more thing to add.
Sure.
So the final step for this, Lisa and I will be working with Patel for Kids. And there's a lot of information that will be provided, but they will put together a really nice, some of them are between 10 to 20 page booklet that highlights the strategic plan, and it looks very professional looking. So that's what we'll be distributing in the fall.
Okay.
So we'll have this, we'll have it ready to go. I'll I'm going to place this on the website so people can view it,
Sure.
but you'll see a much more professional looking document coming into the summer, so.
Okay. Great. Anything else? All right. Lisa?
Good evening, everyone. Chris, I emailed you those 2 slides, if you don't mind pulling them up since you're, oh, do I need to send them to the conference room? I probably do, right?
Well, I can share them, you can just tell them when to switch if you want.
I'll share them at the conference room. So no worries.
No, I can do it off this, I'm fine.
So I think everyone has my report in the drive. I'm happy to entertain questions about that. I also just wanted to formally thank our visual arts teachers for putting together a GRCSU-wide gallery display at the Castleton University Rutland Downtown Gallery. I was able to go several weeks ago now and see artwork from all of the schools in our supervisory union represented, along with some live performances that our music and instrument teachers were able to coordinate with the art teachers, and our arts teachers just really took that on, and made sure that everyone was included and invested and supported each other right through that process. It was wonderful to see. There were so many families there also, and it was open for many weeks in downtown, so others could see as well. And just a great achievement on their part. There was, in the previous supervisory unions, there was a SU-wide art show in the RSWSU, and now to have everyone all together post-pandemic, really collaborating in that way. I hope it's the first of many events and activities that are special and showcase the work that our students and our teachers are doing every day for our communities. So thanks to them. And also what Chris is displaying at the previous board meeting, there was lengthy discussion, if you remember, around proficiency-based learning and how we're reporting student progress toward those proficiencies, among many, many other factors that go into those decisions and conversations. And I think Lisa had made the recommendation that we come back with an update on what the Corey Valley administrators have been working on for our 3 high schools, to talk about where they've gotten to in those conversations, and a little bit about kind of the background of how that came to be. So I just have two quick slides. The first really just highlights kind of the 2 pieces of where we are in our journey right now. And the first column, the column on the left, it talks about how we are a proficiency-based system right now, and some of the ways that our schools and classrooms are operating in a proficiency-based model. And that includes graduation requirements, having a 1-to-4 scale, having multiple opportunities for students to demonstrate their learning, and also that the grades for habits of work or student performance are separate.
And Lisa, just to clarify, this is at Corey Valley High School.
Corey Valley High
It's not
School.
SU.
Corey Valley High School, so 3 high schools, yes. Thank you, Chris. Then there's sort of these pieces that we still have from the traditional grading system, and that includes our GPA and our Latin honors system. Our standards are converted into credits. There are uses of grades for motivation in some cases. Learning is confined to the traditional school calendar of semesters and quarters, and attendance is still a factor in course completion in some cases. And I just wanted to put that up there as a overview, and I know the Corey Valley principals have been talking about this as well, that part of the reason why this is so challenging and complex to navigate is because we're trying to take 2 completely different systems and make them work with each other. And that's not necessarily how either system was originally designed. And so we continue to have these conversations and try to refine what we're doing and refine how we're approaching this work, because we're trying to take 2 dissimilar things and make them work collaboratively together. And that fit is not always easy, simple, or smooth. So just that context for those of you who are joining our proficiency-based journey now. And then here's just a simple update from the Corey Valley High School, and this is a proposed, thank you, Chris, proposed change in the language for their handbook that they have been working with the board through. So the current practice is for students in grades 7 through 12, in order to pass a course, each proficiency for that course must have a grade of 3.0 or higher. And there are weights associated with specific courses, upper level courses. And the shift that the board has been supporting for Corey Valley is that the passing score for a course would change so that each proficiency of that course would need to have a grade of 1.5 or higher. And the conversations that the admin team have been having with teachers and with families, and that they've been having at that board meeting also, is when we tried to put these two systems together, this proficiency-based system and this traditional system, and tried to get those things to work, proficiency and passing became equated with each other. They became the same thing. And that is a construct that came out of lots of conversations within our district. And of course, for those of you who have been around know also, the Agency of Education allowed all systems to have flexibility in creating their own system. And so pretty much every supervisory union in the state has developed a different system and a different approach for how they do these two things. So when our supervisory union made the decision to equate proficiency and passing score for a course, we really deviated very far away from the traditional grading system. If you think back to when we were all in school, you could pass a class with an A, a B, a C, or a D. And there was a whole range of performance because not all students are ready for the same thing on the same day in the same way. And that traditional system accounted for that by having a range of possible levels of performance that a student could reach to still get credit and not have to retake that course material a second time in a second attempt. So when we historically as an SU put those two things together, it really created a lot of challenges for our teachers in the implementation of that system, for our students in understanding, where the bar was, where it needed to be. And over the years that we've been implementing this, we've really learned a lot about what the implications are for students, not just within our walls, but beyond our walls, of having systems like that have set cut points and set pieces. And so based on all of those experiences, the Corey Valley administrators and teachers have really come to the conclusion that we need to separate proficiency and passing again and put them back into their separate systems and take that away so that we're not inadvertently disadvantaging our students through that process, because no matter what we do, we don't want to create harm for kids. We don't want to hold them back. We don't want to create any kind of situation where we're not being authentic, transparent, or fully representing their learning to them or to their families and or to other institutions that might be looking at their performance. And so for high school only, again, thank you, Chris, that is a shift that is being talked about in the Corey Valley High Schools. That is, none of the elementary schools are having that conversation at this time, mostly because it doesn't have the same impact on students, because they're not reporting out GPA, they're not moving forward in a grade level based on a proficiency score necessarily. There are all kinds of factors that come into play at the high school level that just aren't there at the elementary level to begin with. So Lisa or Chris, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that. I know you were part of the Corey Valley conversations.
Well, I think we decided that the 3, everyone being at a 3, what it did was it inflated grades, and it gave students the misunderstanding of where they might actually be. And I think Jen used the best analogy. Maybe you want to talk about it, Jen?
Well, the analogy I just continue to use is, when people go to take their driving test, you still get your license whether you pass with 100 or pass with a 70, unfortunately, but you still get that license at the end of the day. And so we want to make sure that we kind of are resembling some of those real life situations for kids too, as far as credit goes in classes.
So I guess I'm trying to understand the slide where it says the current practice is a 3.0 to pass, and it's a 1.5 now.
So
So
for this year, it's a 3.0 that you have to get in a class in order to earn the credit for that class. And so when people are having their GPAs calculated, everyone is averaging out with over a 3 GPA. And so we've proposed for the board for next year, the shift would be for it to be a 1.5 in order to earn that credit.
You said it's just high school, so what are you doing differently for 7th and 8th grade in Quarry Valley?
We're not doing anything right now.
So they're staying at the 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If a 7th or 8th grade student is taking a high school course, then the same credit application would apply for them for transcript purposes if they're taking advanced classes. But otherwise, if they're in our normal middle school program, it would not apply.
But the key is there's no report out unless you're at the high school level. And that was what precipitated that conversation first. So we're kind of starting at the top and working down because there's more at stake for the high school than middle or elementary. So I know that you had spoke about Rutland Town and being concerned about that. And so one of the thoughts was that perhaps we could create a committee that would incorporate elementary admin, board members, parents, and some instructors from elementary schools. And the other thought was perhaps we could create maybe like a 5-question questionnaire to send to elementary parents, kind of asking them like what their knowledge perhaps is, or what their thought, how they view the grade card now, and what their understanding is of the system and like that. So starting in the committee, you kind of have a baseline of what people are seeing or concerns like that. So, and that would be something that could even be created within that committee, but that would kind of be the first action. But it would be an SU committee. So I don't know how the board feels about that, or what people's thoughts are. And that way that starts the conversation. Like Lisa's slide said, at the high school level, you're kind of confined to quarters and semesters. You don't have to be confined like that at the elementary level. I mean, we could technically go an entire year without giving any grade till the end of the year. You could still have parent-teacher conferences and conversations, but you don't have to be assigning a letter or a number or whatever that is until the end of the year. So it becomes much more fluid because you're in one classroom, it's all moving like that, where at the high school or middle school level, the way Quarry Valley is set up, the way our schedule is set, it's just not fluid to happen in that way. So we have to be in. So we do have quarter and then semester courses to report out, but I mean that's the other piece that could have conversation also. So
I think one of the issues for Rutland Town parents is that they don't know where their kids are sometimes. Like they get this approaching proficiency, or it's confusing. I think when you say proficiency is a 3 and your kid is at a 2 and they stay there the whole year, or they stay close to a 2 but then they pass and they go on to the next year, it's like, well, they never reach proficiency, yet they're continuing on to the next grade, and it's just very confusing. I feel like what you've done in the high school where you're bringing it from a 3 to a 1.5 and saying 1.5 is actually what we're looking for, the minimum for everybody to know in order to pass them on to the next grade. And then there's a range of, abilities above that. I think that translates easily for the middle school as well. I think it makes more sense to parents to know that that's really the goal is minimally there.
Mm-hmm.
And, they can be a range of, there's a range above that.
Right. That almost sounds to me like an informational meeting that needs to happen, that maybe parents don't understand the concept of the grading system. Because even if your child, and I'll just say, like, even if my child started at 2 and stayed at 2, it doesn't mean there's not growth throughout that 2. And I think sometimes that's the misperception, that you have to move a number for there to be growth, when there can be growth within the 2, So,
I think some of that confusion is because when it was rolled out, it was, we haven't taught them yet, so we're giving them a 2.
mm-hmm.
And so they automatically get a 2, but then later on, they're getting a 2 because of their effort.
Yeah.
And it's very confusing to the kid. They're like, well, I had a 2 for most of the year last year and I was fine, so I don't care if I have a 2 now.
Yeah.
So they're not motivated to improve it.
So are elementary schools using the How grade as part of the academic grade, or is it separated out?
It's separated out there
Okay.
also.
Okay. Okay.
But I think what Tina is saying, this happens, and Jay and Jen and Joe can attest this, and I'll speak just from the high school since this is centered on, when you equated passing and proficiency, or you kind of married those two together, which should never have happened.
Right.
What was happening were the teachers were like, hey, this kid's really trying hard, but they may have been like a 2.5 or 2.6, but they know, like, look, I can't, punish this kid and, give him a 2.5, where they then would have to come back and repeat the course or repeat certain standards or be held back.
Right.
So they would just, give them a 3 just to move them along. But when you converted that, it was given this false narrative in terms of where that student was actually at. And I think
Right.
when, Jen, Jay, and Joe came to Lisa and I with this proposal and discussed their concerns, it was valid in that it would be more accurate in terms of, where a student was at with regard to proficiency. And, obviously our goal is to have all of our kids, at proficiency. That's not going to change. But it also, didn't diminish or, you didn't have that grade inflation where a teacher would feel guilty because a kid was trying. I know the traditional grade scale kids would work very hard, but they couldn't just get up there. It was getting a C, but there was value in that because they worked hard. And those kids would be just fine, but they got a C. But they weren't being saying, hey, you got to go back and repeat take the course over again.
Right.
So I think there are a lot of discussions around proficiency based. I know that I've had some concerns for 5 years, particularly entered, just about how it never made sense to me, like when proficiency and passing were the same.
Right.
Because that's not how it really ever should have been.
And maybe part of the conversation at the elementary level would be, maybe we look at it more as passing as opposed to having the number structure in place. And I don't know, I'm just saying, but I think that, I think personally, and I don't have a child in elementary school that was doing this at the time, but the credit is different than the foundation that we're trying to establish in primary school, in my opinion, is why I think it's the fluidity of primary school, has some benefits. So maybe you don't even give a grade till second semester or something like that. I mean, it's easy within the rubric to see what the expectations are for each class. I mean, that's what we did with the curriculum mapping. So those things, you can view and see as a parent without having a number attached to it. And maybe, and I'm just saying, maybe that's a conversation. Maybe you don't have a number attached at the elementary school level, because it's more about, you know, the foundation as opposed to, you know, the number.
But it's like a philosophy almost of, you know, as we send our children into school as parents, you know, I've seen this even in special education. There is well, is he better than? You know, we've always thought like that. Is this child better than that child in terms of grading? So we haven't looked at, like what you were saying, in terms of not, I mean, that'd be a interesting way to look at it, at not grading. Because then you've done away with that. There isn't a better than. It's better than yourself. It's not better than another kid, another student. So that's a whole different philosophy kind of looking at it, which is interesting.
It's a competitive world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at 7 years old, how competitive do you need to be?
I'm actually talking more about like 5th through 8th. I'm not talking about the elementary. I think the elementary has done a great job since it came out. They have benchmarking, so you kind of know how your kid is doing.
Yeah.
Like, are they following along? Are they, you know,
Right.
learning? Sorry, I heard a fire alarm. I was like, what is that coming from? Or something.
It's a car alarm.
A car alarm, yeah.
How do middle school kids get placed in their trajectory for high school? You know what I mean? Like,
currently, they're taking just their, you know, traditional 7th, 8th grade classes, and they move through the traditional high school schedule. One of the things we talked about with the Corey Valley admins, and at least myself, is we'd love to see, you know, Algebra 1 be shifted to 8th grade, so it puts our kids at, but in order to do that, you know, a slide has to occur, not just, you can't just do that. I mean, so we have to look at what's being taught in 7th grade, and, you know, adjustments have to be made all the way down, so, right,
But we've kind of created, even though not great, but the expectation, everyone's taking the same thing in middle school in Corey Valley.
which typically happens in
Most middle
schools
schools,
in
yeah.
freshman year, that there's the core courses that need to be taken.
Right.
And then really as they move into their sophomore year, that's when you start to see more electives or enrichment that can be taken.
Mhm. So,
I agree with you guys' assessment that maybe giving everyone a 3 puts a lot of kids at a disadvantage, thinking they're way ahead of where they should be. But at some point, and perhaps in this process, you have to set a bar. And we got to get to the bar. So if it's 1.5, then are we now just giving kids 1.5 that ultimately shouldn't be there? You're always going to have this kind of conundrum, but I would agree that handing everybody a B out of the gate is, everyone's not a B student. And we're all from the construct of ABCs. I look around the room.
right.
No one's 20 years old where they grew up in this numbered system, which is way different. It's not different, it's just a different construct, but
Yeah.
I think creating a bar and having,
Right, and I'll say, I agree with 100%. I think that's the discussion we've talked about. I think over the past 30 years, we've had these conversations. I was having the conversation back in 1993 around, you know, just, you know, where that bar sits. And so, you know, if Eric, myself, and Tina are all teaching the same course, that bar could be at different levels depending on each one of us. And I did say to a teacher once, well, who sets that bar? I mean, well, the individual does. So that, you know, to that 1.5, that 3 could be, I mean, kids have to work their tails off to get that. Or another course, you just show up and, you know, bring a teacher an apple and, hey, you know, you're getting that score. We have to do a better job of calibration. And that's regardless of what system, that's something which we have to take a look at is, what is that expectation route? Where is that bar in our classroom? So even though we had a 3, I do think there are times where that bar was still pretty low for that 3, and then other classes, that bar was pretty high for that 3. So you even had a variance there. And I think that's just inherent within any grading system, whether it be, you know, 100-point scale, letter grade. We have to really work at, you know, within our buildings, across the SUs, just how do we calibrate to really understand that, well, what this looks like, you know, within our course. And when I was an AP teacher, we had to do a lot of summer programming, summer work around scoring of essays and what a 4 looks like, what a 3 looks like. And it was 2 weeks, but you really walked out of there. You had a better understanding in terms of when I was given a 2 or 3, it was in line with others. And so I think those are conversations we have to continue to have around raising that bar, because this is not meant to lower the bar in any ways. It was just meant to give a more realistic perspective, particularly as we're converting to a GPA about where our students are at.
And I think the communication of, we're really looking at the grade at the end of the year, but we're trying to help our kids all do the best they can by the end of the year. So figuring out how to best communicate that.
Well, I think part of
Motivate
that,
kids.
once we can have the rubrics and everything up, that it gives a better, path for parents. So if my child's in Algebra 1, I know I can go to the rubric, and this is what they need to be doing to be here, to be there. So I think those are some pieces that maybe we were missing before, that parents that weren't as maybe involved, or this is their first child or something like that, just didn't have that background to know where that is. So this is kind of giving you the cheat sheet, I guess, as the parent to kind of have a better flow chart of where that is. So I thank you, Lisa, for bringing this, and I guess the next step is if individual districts want to look at what we've done or have Lisa come and talk about that. If middle school is the concern, I'm sure Quarry Valley will have this discussion in a couple of years about doing something like that. Since we've just made the shift at the high school level, I think we're going to let that play out for at least, a year or so to see how that goes. But, it's certainly, you don't have to recreate the wheel, so to speak. A lot of the work has been done. So, but that's where we're at.
If I could add, I think a lot of work we could be doing is how we're communicating, regardless of if we change the rubric, we change this, is how you communicate that to the parent, what it actually means throughout the year, and that could be more data and getting our parents more data driven or digitally enhanced to say, I can see a 2, what does that mean to me? Nothing. In one sense, I might say, hey, it's great, it's passing, we'll go on to next year. In another sense, say, there's a 2, but we're barely there, like they need proficiencies, and hopefully we're small enough where, not every kid's gonna get 100 in every subject, and certainly that's not gonna make them successful, but to give those parents, what does it actually mean versus that one snapshot when they do the parent-teacher conference and they're like 2, walk away, the smaller kids are like, we love your kids, they're doing great, they're gonna, like, I have no idea what that means, but.
Yeah.
I'd like to know if
I do think teachers are having more conversation with parents other than that snapshot at teacher-parent conferences. I think we encourage parents to, have other levels of communication, and I've seen that happen even at the high school level, to reach out to parents, whether your kid's doing great or your kid's, not doing great, that we've tried to change that kind of mindset that, it used to be if you heard from the teacher called home, probably wasn't a good move, right? And so we've tried to change that mindset that if the teacher's calling, it doesn't mean it's because you're failing. You could be doing fabulous. So I think, that's changed also, and I think that's encouraged more teachers, I've noticed, to reach out and just be more open with parents, at least at the schools that I see in Quarry Valley. So
I think one thing that I'd love to see too is just figuring out how to help parents and maybe teachers for some extra, knowledge to help students with their self-motivation. Because I think sometimes the way the system works, if, say they had a rough start to the year and then they start, they want to do better, it's really hard to move their grade up at a certain point to a lot. And so that's one downfall I see with this system, where they get a quarter grade. It's like every quarter they kind of could start fresh. So if, they could say, oh, I really had a bad quarter, something happened, I broke my leg and it made me depressed and I couldn't study for a few weeks and I really bombed a couple tests. Well, then the next quarter they can get right back on there and try again, and it's like, all right, now I'm back on track. the way this system works, it's all like starts from the beginning, and it's much harder, say, third quarter, if you want to turn it around, it's much more difficult.
Gina hit the nail on the head, like, try to make it more fluid. Why, what does it matter what I knew the first week of school if I got it all at the end? But if I got a 0 week 1, I can't get 100 anymore? That's not a
Yeah.
good system.
Right.
And kids are
Right.
learning it all
So
differently.
that's,
The more fluid we can
that's
make
something
it.
that I would love to look at.
Jen?
Well, I was gonna say, the way that our jump rope is set up, it actually matters more what you know on the end of a course
Yes.
than what you know in the beginning, because it's a decaying average.
Yeah.
So the last thing that's entered in is weighted the most heavily.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, the
Same
learning at the end is what matters most, not the learning around the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, the initial assessments, they don't disappear, they are still part of your average,
Yeah, but they do
they're
decay.
weighted much,
Yeah.
much less than the assessments.
And
that are
it's
meant for-
also, it's more like life, because, you know, when you do something like that at your job, you know, they don't say to you, well, we're going to hack off half your salary this week because you really bombed, you didn't hit it. And the guy knows that his wife had a baby and he's been up all night for 3, you know, it's more like life, it looking at it like that. And it teaches the kids, I think, more about the life.
Yeah.
Never been in commission sales.
Well, so I think there's a good baseline for if Rutland Town wants to start that conversation, that you have a good baseline from Corey Valley and from Lisa to start that conversation.
I do think that if we start discussing at 1, I think it'd be a conversation that we really should look at across. Whether or not it's, you know, but I think that's, you know.
Okay.
One district has taken one approach, say for K through 6, and others take another approach. It really, it's gonna be very difficult.
Well, I think-
So that's why I think we really have to look at, really what an SU approach to this would be for the elementary grades.
Well, so, I mean, I guess the conversation is, are we looking at pre-K through 4? Are we looking at 5 through 8? Because I think that changes, I mean, to me, that changes the conversation. 5 through 8 is a different conversation than pre-K through 4. So, and it doesn't make any difference to me, and maybe it's easier to go like 5 through 8 because we're coming from the high school, so there is more of a trickle down. So that kind of goes back to my suggestion, like we could create a committee here, we could talk it, you know, have admin that have already worked through this, kind of be part of it, lead it, board members, you know, this board can decide the size of what you think that committee should be, and then you could have teachers or parents. So is that something people are willing to do or interested to do tonight, or is that a conversation, or Jen's gonna lay it out for us?
Well, I just feel like based upon the conversation, what I'm hearing, there might be a lot of misconceptions. And so it sounds like we need to do a better job of educating about what is or what is not. And sometimes there are probably implementation issues when you have so many schools and you're rolling out something, and just knowing like where I am in the district, I don't know if we've had like a proficiency-based conversation night with parents again that are entering in and actually knowing what's going on. And so it might be that we just need to do a better job of having more conversations at first about this before we make like drastic changes at a K through 8 level. Because I know when I was at the K, like as a student, we were based on proficiency, like it was a satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So that it's not a new conversation at the elementary level to grade on these things.
So maybe we could have admin put together like a webinar or something like that we could put up on the website, put on PEG TV that kind of has that discussion? Or do you think that we would need to have something like that and have it be a little more interactive and have parents be invited? I mean, that's something we could do this summer at a school, or we could have them simply submit questions via the website.
I know when we were first transitioning to this kind of system that there was a meeting in the fall for the southern schools anyway, because the northern schools had already been using jump rope and doing some other things. And we had a family meeting in the fall at the school level where families were welcome to come, and they heard a little presentation about like what was this system and how did it work, and they got to ask questions and see some samples of it. And that, from at the time, we got really, pretty positive feedback to that it helped people to understand, what was going on in the system. So I do wonder maybe if that's something that could get tied in with some of like the back to school kind of activities that schools are doing.
Yeah, and that's what we northern schools did. For open house, we, like before parents left and kind of took your student schedule, we had it set up in the cafeteria, gym, whatever, so you could see what jump rope looked like, how to maneuver through it, and those kinds of things. So, I mean, we haven't done it in a while, so maybe that's something we do need to go back and do again. Jay?
Yeah, I would just advocate to have something like that in person. So Lisa said it very nicely. I think as we've gone through this journey over the last 5-6 years, I think it is time to have a better system of explaining this to our parents, because I just think the conversation needs to be held. And I'd rather do it in person where we can have this, a conversation.
I guess the concern is that everyone's receiving the same information at the same time. So like, even if we're doing it at open house, like you're receiving the information that I'm giving you, right? Which may not be the same information that Mike's giving Tim. So that's why, I mean, if we
We
could
could
do
develop
it.
same like slides that they
Yeah.
work off of.
We've done that a lot over the last few
Okay.
years, where like we've collectively created a single
So
set of
maybe
slides
as
that
we
people
create
can
open house or welcome back this year, we allot like 20 minutes to do that at the onset of everybody's open house. And then if more information's needed, or we feel like there's more information, we could do something beyond that.
It's slightly confused. Are we talking about a committee for what?
No,
It's
no,
not-
no,
K through
not,
eight?
It's not
Or-
a committee.
it's not a committee.
Communication around, like what you were talking about, just doing a better job of communicating what this looks like. And I think that's what the
What looks like the
what
proficiency-based
our
grading.
current K through 8
Right.
system
K through
looks
8?
like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
So like start like,
Not the 7 through 12 or
Well, but
9
I mean,
through 12
communicating
is-
the
that's
changes
another
to 7
communicate.
through 12.
Well,
Yeah.
but
Would
the
also
changes
be
were only
important,
9
too.
through 12 right
Right,
now.
9 through
Yeah.
12.
Okay.
So,
Sorry.
but
I
my,
misspoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jen had her hand up first, but I would like to speak after her.
yeah, Jen?
Thanks, Tina. And I also, what Tina said about kids not being able to get a 2, or they start with a 2 and they stay at a 2. I do think that we all should need to do a better job with some of our teachers. Like that idea is a relic that first came out.
Yes.
That we couldn't give kids a 3 when they started in classes because we hadn't taught them the material. That was sort of one of those misconceptions in the beginning that we worked through with teachers. So if that misconception is still out there, that's something that an admin would need to know so that they could address with a teacher. So that could also be another front that we're tackling as far as like communicating with parents so they know what's going on, what we're doing, and also like refreshing our teachers on these are the true tenets of proficiency-based system, and that was something that we previously had discussed and probably needed to move away from. So.
Okay, Tina?
And I was just going to say, if we're switching where proficiency is for 9 through 12, I think it should be consistent across the board.
We're
For
not-
any grade.
We're not switching where proficiency is. I think
We're
it's a
switching-
passing.
The passing grade.
Passing.
Okay.
Where
So
you
you're
can get the
separating.
credit,
Yes, we're
yes.
separating
Okay.
those two things.
So where you're getting the credit is at a 1.5.
Okay. I like
Okay?
that. Yes.
Okay.
And can I say too, it's like, you're gonna put this plan out, and parents are going to look at it, and teachers are going to look at it, and then they're gonna say, where is where is proficiency based in this plan? They're gonna look at this like, this is the plan we're following for GRCSU. This is everything we're doing for our kids in GRCSU. So
Well, not necessarily. There are a lot of things we're doing that don't fall into that
But
plan. so-
that's something that needs to be said,
Well, sure,
because
but
sometimes
we're not
that
gonna-
gets confusing to parents of, well, where is this in this big
Well, no,
plan here?
right, Linda, 100%. I think that's
Yeah.
where we have to, we have to understand how to best communicate the strategic plan to our stakeholders.
Yes.
But this isn't all encompassing. There'll be a lot of things that we're still doing that don't fall in the plan that we are currently doing. So proficiency-based grading or requirements are something that's a statute that we really don't have.
Right, but
Control. We have
sometimes
some
they'll look at it like, this is it, okay?
Oh,
But that's almost like you say, well, this is one part of something that we're doing for that
Right,
is,
right.
but then there's other things that also, because people do, that is the communication that sometimes gets confused when they see that. They really think like, this is it. This is the whole ball thing.
Right, we're not gonna, I mean, like I said, I'll place the slides on there, but when, like, Patel has a nice professional, we understand that that's, here you go, and then we're not gonna just say, there's a lot of messaging that we're gonna have to do, you know, in terms of sending out. I'm sure Lisa, myself, the admins will talk about doing just a screencastify or something like that, where we actually go through and we explain next steps are. We're going to have to communicate regularly at board meetings, we're at, you know, at open houses. So there's a lot of communication we're going to have to do around
Yeah.
strategic plan. It's not just off we go. So we understand that. So that's part of what we're working through. So, but, right, because if someone believes that, well, that's all we're doing, then we'll have to clarify that. So they better understand that, so.
Okay, so here's my communication piece. So going forward with proficiency-based, that it sounds like to me the first step could be creating the slides that explain proficiency-based, whether it's you're a new parent or updating it, that everyone will use the same at their open house in the fall. I think we could also create just like an exit survey for them. This was helpful. We need more information on this. So if we get a lot of those responses like confusing, we need more information, that collectively we know where to go forward from, whether we need to have a forum in person, if we need to, you know, one school maybe one school says, we're fine, we get it, and one school's like, we're ready to pull our hair out. We know where to focus like that. So does that seem like that involves no committee, that's literally just starting, kind of like we did 5 years ago with like that nobody understands what proficiency-based is, and we're going to give them, you know, 20 minutes, 25 minutes at the beginning of every open house in every building. Does that sound like a plan, a starting place? It's not changing anything for middle school.
No, I'm not disagreeing. I just wonder if right at the beginning of the year, if it would be as relevant as closer to when they're going to be seeing the first grades.
Well, we can always put the slides and everything that we've shared then on the website, and we can say that and create a tab for that on there. And I think that for a lot of parents, I mean, I think our website has gotten better and it's easier to manipulate, that people do go there for things like that. So, I mean, we can even ask, you know, other, you know, each individual schools to put that up on their websites too. It doesn't just have to be on the SU website, but at least it gives people a snapshot to what's going to be happening, what the expectations are. So,
I'm all on board. More communication's better up front, whether they know it or don't know it,
Yeah.
reinforcing what we have. My confusion comes with, there are being changes from 8 to 12, which doesn't.
9 to
9 to 12.
9 to 12, sorry. It doesn't land on my desk because I'm not there. But
Yeah.
and we don't have to talk about it now, but those need to be communicated way more than
yeah. and
reinforcing what's already happening to people.
Yeah,
So
and that's in our handbook, and that's been an ongoing conversation. Corey Valley is,
Sure.
communicating
Okay.
that, so,
Yeah, I'm all for same slide. This is how it works, and
yeah.
maybe we do that several times, Tina. I mean, it should be constant. Not all parents are paying attention all the time. It's just-
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as much as a committee sounds tempting.
I was just trying to I'd like it to be the easiest.
So I was going to suggest that we just put it on our agenda and, just go through and, I think that's something that, we could achieve. But I do like the idea of an open house, because I think you're gonna get more, parental input at an open house when, like when school first starts.
Yeah.
Rather than
People are excited to come.
a teacher conference or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, because, yeah.
And that's why I think if you do an exit poll, then from, whatever we do, people, it's gonna be fresh, and people are gonna tell you, like, no, I have no idea what you said, or, yeah, I get it. So even if half the people fill it out, I think that's good feedback for us, so. All right, so we could task admin and Lisa with
That's great.
for fall open houses. Here, you thought you were just gonna lay around by the pool all summer.
I will say we are in very good company. The Harvard Graduate School of Education, I just found their journal in my mailbox today. And the cover title of the issue is "The Problems with Grading." So we are not alone. in
Yeah,
our
it's never gonna
conversations
go
in this
away,
area.
so. Okay, I think that's a good place to end, and I think it's a good place for us to start, so we're all doing it together. So I think that's the most important part of communication, that everyone's getting the same information, so. All right, thank you. So we will move on to contract resignations, or recommendations, I'm sorry, we'll do that first. And for professional staff, we have FY24 new hires, rehires, and horizontal moves. Catherine Lucia, Proctor High School special ed teacher, horizontal move, 64,201 to 66,356. Tammy Rescott, Pulteney Elementary interventionist, 78,420, which is grant funded. And Corey Smith, GRCSU curriculum coordinator at 80,000. Are there any questions about the FY24 new hires?
Yeah, I have a question about the curriculum coordinator. And I was trying to go back and look and see what the position, I think the job description, I couldn't find it, but I couldn't remember if the salary was part of that either. And I'm just curious, did we discuss, like this is almost like an administrative level position, or?
This is equivalent to the other coordinator positions that we've employed at 80,000, so it's similar to that.
Similar to that.
This is ESSER funded, it's a one-year position.
That was my next question. Okay, because it didn't say grant.
Right.
All right, that's all the questions I had.
Okay. Support staff, FY23 new hires, Megan Watkins, Pulteney Elementary, special ed para, $15.26 an hour. F24 new hires, Shirley Brigmum, Rutland Town, special ed para, $16.19 an hour. Kimberly Hutchison, GRCSU, occupational therapist, $56,917. Any questions about any of those? All right, a motion would be in order to approve professional staff as presented.
So moved.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Extracurricular. FY24 summer help, or staff. Heidi Brothers, Pulteney, or Proctor High, summer special ed, $50 an hour. Catherine Lucia, Pulteney, or Proctor High, summer special ed, $50 an hour. Tom Lubinowski, summer Proctor High, special ed, $50 an hour. Ryan McIntyre, West Rutland, summer special ed, $50 an hour. Kira Simonetti, West Rutland, summer special ed, $50 an hour. Ashley Siemens, Pulteney Elementary, summer special ed, $50 an hour. Lori Elliott, Rutland Town, summer special ed, $50 an hour. Noelle Jepson, Middletown, summer special ed, $50 an hour. Erica Washburn, Rutland Town, summer para, $25 an hour. Ashley Arnold, Rutland Town, summer para, $25 an hour. Ashley Dewfield, Pulteney Elementary, summer para, $25 an hour. Regina Sharon, Pulteney Elementary, summer SLP, $50 an hour. Jody Manning, Rutland Town, summer SLP, $50 an hour. Julie Walensky, Proctor Elementary, Proctor High, summer SLP, $50 an hour. Kelsey McGinnis, GRCSU occupational therapist, 65 an hour. Ally Mitchell, GRCSU summer physical therapist, 65 an hour. Tina Crandell, Wells Village summer para, 1-to-1, 25 an hour. Irene DeMattis, Polteny Elementary summer para, 25 an hour. Lori Lasante, Polteny Elementary summer para, 25 an hour. Karen Brown, Polteny Elementary summer para, 25 an hour. Christina Perry, West Rutland summer para, 25 an hour. Ron Wood, Proctor Elementary summer, 1-to-1 para, 25 an hour. A motion would be in order to approve the extracurricular summer staff.
So moved.
Discussion.
I just want to thank all those staff members for giving up some of their summer and helping our students out.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Resignations. We have Christina Sweet, dental hygienist, effective end of FY23. Lori Lasante, Polteny Elementary Special Ed para, effective end of FY23, pending approval of Corey Valley teacher contract. Corey Valley meets Thursday. A motion would be in order to accept the resignations.
So moved.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Non-acceptance of FY24 contracts. Serena Plank, Middletown Special Ed para, her contract expires on the last workday of FY23. A motion would be to accept her non-acceptance of the FY24. Okay, okay. And then we have a leave request for Jen Heath, who is a paraeducator in West Rutland, and she's requesting a leave of absence for the 23-24 school year for personnel reasons. Does anyone want to speak to that, or?
As per the sports staff master agreement, I would just recommend the approval of this.
Okay. A motion would be in order to grant the leave request.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion by Tina. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, old business. Oh, finance. Lewis isn't here this evening, but you have the reports in your packet. And old business, central office update.
Like I said, there's going to be a placeholder till we actually are relocated. Just reiterating that we will be moving the last week of July. We have a move-in date right now. They said August 6th, which is a Sunday, so we're trying to clarify if we can get in the Friday before or Monday after. But there is a good chance that we may be able to get into the facility August 1st. So if we have contingency plans in place, that if there is a week where central office staff have to work remotely, then we will get that done. So we're nothing else to report. So at this time.
Okay. And the GRCSU retreat for July. I guess the primary conversation is what people want the retreat to look like, what people want the retreat to discuss. Do people want the retreat to, some of you have been on the board before, we've had people come from the VSBA and lead the board through, different avenues of things that the board thinks they need work upon or discuss. So it's really, what is the expectation of the board through the retreat? And I will throw it out there for anyone who wants to bite on that. And we're looking to have the retreat in July.
Instead of a regular meeting, or as a regular meeting? Or?
Probably, I mean, I guess it depends on what people are thinking the retreat needs to look like. I mean, I'm sure there will be some business that has to, I mean, we're probably gonna have new hires and things like that, so there would be some business, but we would try to, have it together. So, I mean, what are things that people would like to see? Well, first of all, does the board want to have a facilitator come? Because that requires looking and having someone, you know, booking them. So that might not necessarily be like on a regular meeting date. So that's one piece. And if we are looking to have a facilitator, what would you like the facilitator to do?
I guess I would ask, you know, my first thought would be, you know, we did some, I guess, some goal work last year, and, you know, I would be supportive to go through and have some sort of, you know, and I guess that if the board, you know, agrees that we can really, you know, take a look at the big picture and, you know, as an SU board, and, you know, create some goals that, I guess, you know, something we haven't done in years. But, you know, I'd be supportive of that, and if we did go down that path, you know, obviously a facilitator could help achieve that.
Okay.
Do we have an orientation program or things for new people coming in for board?
Through the VSBA, they have a whole program.
Yeah, they do, but it's, I wrote down a couple of things I thought, you know, it's like when you're coming in to, as a new board member, and, you know, I thought like the bylaws were really important for them, for people to be able to know where they are and to read. And what's the other thing that has to do with our history of how we started?
Linda, so we created a document that had all the, so it was like a one-stop shop that Christine should have shared with all new board members, that had links to all these items, so people wouldn't have to go looking, because we actually discussed whether to do a paper copy of a new board member packet, or have a sheet that had links to all that. So you should have access to a sheet that has all that. So, you know, and I believe Christine was going to share it with all the board as well.
I didn't get anything. I think I didn't hear anybody else getting it. It could be that it's just, but just how to, you know, it's okay to ask a question. You know, I've talked with different board members that in the past that have been on the board, and, you know, there's a lot of feeling of like, what do I, and people come thinking, I mean, I did some research on this, and a lot of board members that come to boards come because there's a specific issue that they feel is something maybe impacting their family, a school, something that puts them there, that they think they're going to change. That I'm going to get on the board and I'm going to change that. And then they find out that it's a group. It's everybody communicating with each other. And so sometimes just saying, and yeah, that I've got all the information from the VSBA, you know, and I've read it again, because I read it the first time, but just something to, because I said to a couple of people, have you ever read the bylaws? Well, what are the bylaws? Well, they're just things that people agreed on in a board that were important. Did you know that you have board policies? Or did you know that there is a policy and we're responsible for policies, but we're not responsible for procedure? And a procedure means that goes to the school, and the school is responsible, and the principal's responsible. Just things like that, because when a community member talks to you, sometimes you can say to them, I have nothing to do with that. You have to go through, or there's a chain of command.
I think there's, to Tina's point, there's a lot of resources you can have as a board member, and becoming a new board member with the VSB provides to kind of give you that governance of what it means to be a board member. I'd be happy to share those with you.
I have them.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying sometimes it's just sometimes it can just be a one-page thing, okay?
Yeah.
Here's your one page that might help you through the first 2 meetings. Okay? That might help you through the first 2 meetings. It's going to take you a whole year, even to say that. You know what? It's going to take you a whole year before you really figure out what's going on. And that's okay, because you're not supposed to know everything when you walk through the door.
I think like what Chris was talking about, the onboarding process, we've been talking about it for months, and they did a fantastic job just compiling all this information that's specific for each district. And it has, if articles of agreement and for one district, and meetings, minutes for the last few minutes or meetings, and all the policy information. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop. You just go through and just click on links, and it just takes you to it. But I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're getting at, but.
I was just trying to think of
Right, just-
compartmentalizing it to something smaller.
Meredith?
The VSBA has a lot of resources, including new board member videos, essential work of school boards. I've participated in some of their seminars, and it's saying some of the simple stuff that you're talking about that people just don't realize that's what the school board is all about. And it's pretty concise. It's not hard to dig through. So I don't know if you've been to the VSBA website?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about newbies that are here for their first meeting.
So Linda,
Well, this is something that I think new members, when they're elected, are sent links to things like that.
Yeah. I was just thinking of a one-page thing where they say, welcome new board members. There are articles of agreement. This is our history. There are policies and procedures. Just something simple. Here's some of the vocabulary that you might hear at your first board meeting. Not a big, you're going to get a financial report. It's going to be complicated to read. It may take a few months. It may take a few years. There'll be reports from superintendents. Just kind of like, here's a first page of what your first meeting may look like,
So maybe, Chris, you want to have Christine forward that onboarding piece to her again.
I think I find it frustrating because we've created a shared drive for every board, and it's right there when you click on this. So I understand that there, we last year we talked about this, and we've spent a lot of time compiling all this information. And I guess my frustration is when you join the board, I get the same VSBA emails that every board member gets.
Mm-hmm.
And I attend sessions, I go through stuff, so, and I get logs in terms of who attends, so I can see who's, and a lot of as Meredith said, there's a lot of information on the VSBA website. I'm looking through the essential works of school boards, and I'm leafing through this, I'm referencing the bylaws, understand that while that one page can be 15 to 20 pages, I do an FAQ, because what's one page for one person, I'm going to miss 3 or 4 different questions on this. So I think that's where new board members also have to, at meetings, have to reach out, ask, you can ask myself. I have board members all the time asking me about how to handle things. I put in our, about setting agenda. And these are right from the essential works of school boards, as well as from a policy. So it's not like it's hidden anywhere. It's in materials that all board members have access to. So part of being your responsibility to join the board is also to, as an adult, to take the ownership of educating yourself about what that actually means, and not just be passive and say, well, no one told me how to do this. They said when you ran for this, or you elected for people were electing for you to be active for that. But but like I said, we sent this
I'm good with
this
that.
resource, and there's a welcome letter, there's the policy manual, has, GRCSU has, Quarry Valley has everything that they could possibly want in here. And we can we can.
She
look
sent
at
it out
some-
to everybody?
Yes, it's into share drive. Everyone has access to share drive.
Okay.
I would interject as a new board member,
Yes.
and I think we do a good job. I think personally too, there's a lot of tough love that needs to go along with people that maybe they have an agenda, maybe they don't have an agenda, but when you join a board, if you don't know how a board runs, you're going to learn pretty quickly, or you're not going to learn, but it's on you. Chris did a great job. I think the district does a great job. He reached out to me, invited me in within the first week of the election results, so kind of gave me the rundown, as well as they give us all the resources. But I'm more of a tough love approach of, this welcome to the board, and you may have been telling people that you're going to go in and change this, and this, but the board has governance, not direct action. You're not walking in the school owning it and
Don't
telling
bring
your
your
neighbors.
bags with you.
And I don't have a problem with that.
But we could have a welcoming committee if you want to be that, which
No,
would be
I
fine.
like conversation.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm gonna I'm bringing it up, okay? I'm not at all upset that if that's how it's gonna go, that is fine. I'm just bringing it up to have a conversation. We had it, and we can move
Lynn,
on.
I appreciate that, but I think what's frustrating is
It is
I need
frustrating.
those board members to reach out to me. And no one has reached out to me, say, where can I find this information? I don't know. No one's reaching out to me about that.
That's why I was just saying,
So-
you know what, here's
so
this
to address
one-page
this-
thing
Right.
that you hand out to every board member when they come that
Correct.
says, here's where everything is, it's on the shared drive, and it doesn't have to be a huge thing like this, okay? I've got it, okay? I read it. So just a one-page thing of saying, here's where it is. You can find everything you need on your shared drive. If you can't find your shared drive, then you should contact Christine McGinnis and she'll help you through it,
But
like
the-
she did.
Linda, the expectation is that board members will read from cover to cover the essential works of school boards. That's essential to be a board member, understanding what your role is, and
Yes.
it walks you through Robert's rules and everything else. I can put together a one-pager, but they still have to read through the essential works of school boards. There are no shortcuts to educating yourself, and I think that's where, like I said, we have put together this one-stop shop of everything for individuals to find that, but, so, I mean, we can continue to look at tonight, you said, about what we can do, but
No, I mean,
the
if that-
fact that it's in, everyone has that shared drive, everyone has access to this, so I'll check with Christine about whether or not that was sent out, but I know Christine is very diligent about, about getting this out, this information to individuals, and I know that
She's
this year we
great.
revamped our process.
No, she's great,
So,
she's great.
but-
You can call her and she will help you through anything.
I think underlying your people helping people, and that's what we should be doing. So to go back to where we started,
So-
what would be helpful on the retreat for me
Okay,
is an informal.
it would be informal.
Oh, I know, but that's how I like it. Retreats, informal, letting our hair down. I think
Yeah.
I like the goal idea. But for me, what would be helpful for the people who've been here, maybe since the beginning, of just what's worked, what hasn't worked, and maybe confound on some. Just talk through it. Of here, this started 5 years ago. Here's what we've been doing. Here's what worked for us. Here's what hasn't worked, or we at least hear from everybody, so I can get a gauge of that. And then I think we could do some goal work. I would ultimately like to do this after the Rutland Town Board retreat, so we can bring the goals from our board, and again, not setting them, but just to we're different groups.
Yeah,
And
when
have
is
that-
that? Is that in
Ours
July?
is July 11th,
11th.
or whatever the Tuesday is.
Okay.
I think it's July
To
11th.
kind of just let our hair down, and obviously I don't like the decisions at retreats. Just kind of kick back
Yeah.
and get to know you guys, and kind of I need more of the history of how it's operated, because I've just
So-
in peripheral.
So it sounds like the first step is to have Chris find a facilitator and see what kind of dates are available. And that the goal of the facilitator is to help us walk through and maybe set goals that we could set for 3 to 5 years. While they may change in some capacity, at least we have them kind of like the strategic plan. I think it would be a good idea if our goals were kind of on that same time frame like that. So, I mean, we may only look at the first 2 goals or something like that, but, I mean, does that make sense, or?
With all the people that we have in our SU, do we really need a facilitator to do that? I think I think Chris with a whiteboard up there can do as good a job as anybody, and
So-
it allows us more fluidity.
Yeah.
We're not making it
Mike,
financial.
I appreciate it. I think sometimes there's merit to having someone from outside conduct this, but that's
And
just my
it could-
personal
it-
thought. I mean, I can
yeah.
do it, but I do.
Sometimes
think
it's
there's value
easier to
that.
listen to the neighbor than it is from your parent. But, I mean, and that doesn't have to mean that it's, the VSBA. I mean, it could be before we had someone come that was, you know, a retired person from Rutland City. Remember when we did that, forum? So,
I'll do whatever the board was.
I mean, if that's the direction the board wants to go,
I think it would be super helpful, and learning from just the Battelle process of them able to take what everyone was throwing at them, and everyone's saying different stuff, and some people are saying the same stuff, and the facilitators helping to kind of drive a
Yeah.
million different things into this box, which is what we need, and that's what they're good at. So, whether it's formal or informal, I think there's always some value to having a
Was a facilitator, like you said, Rutland City, like,
who did we,
schools, or was it
no,
like-
who did we have come?
We've had David Wolk do it
David
before, and I
Wolk,
think
yeah.
that was worth it.
Yeah, we had him come, several years ago and do a little something, something.
We've had Dave Walker, we had Susan Holston.
Yeah, well, that's VSBA. Yeah.
Kathy Latender is.
Oh, we've had her.
At Wells Springs, so, I mean, but, you know, like I said, it's.
I mean, I don't care if the board wants, if that's the direction the board wants to go, is to have, one of our, admin to kind of be like the recorder or whatever that is, that's, I mean, it's your retreat, so you decide what you want. You just need to be able to lead this meeting tonight with some kind of, you know, idea of what we're doing, so.
Well, I like your idea of setting a
work.
goal, Eric.
And, you know, I think, you know, with having a facilitator and all of us getting together, you know, we could end up all on the same page with, you know, maybe just one or two goals that, and then, you know, at the same time, get a better perspective on, you know, what everyone's thinking. That's the way I kind of see our retreat working.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think the last time that was done with, you know, with the VSBA coming was in, what, 2018? And I wasn't on this board at the time. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. Yeah, because we wouldn't have done it, we haven't done it since COVID. I mean, we last year we did meet, but it was a pretty weak turnout.
And I think it was more centralized around like superintendent goals than,
Yeah, yeah.
than our board goals.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if does a facilitator have to be related to education, or would it be someone that was like just had an understanding of the way that a structure like this functions?
To my perspective, is the facilitator should be someone who's just going to, as you know, we'd said before, you know, is going to help generate thoughts and move you in one direction. It doesn't necessarily have to be education focused to do that.
Sometimes it's someone's helping you kind of wordsmith ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I
Yeah.
haven't been in a meeting with a facilitator, so but it,
Yeah,
to your
I
point,
mean-
having someone that's totally disconnected to the elements of education,
And
but
we've done both
understands the
here.
structure of
Yeah.
how this all flows.
Because Adam was our facilitator once, and
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
so,
It's a ringmaster for thought.
yeah.
That's really what it is. It's somebody who can assess what the thought of the board is. If he has a goal, or we state a goal that we're trying to get to a certain place, usually their job is to coalesce the thought and keep it going in that direction,
Keep it moving too.
Yeah.
if they're good.
Well, we've had the VSBA before? And were they
Yeah,
good?
we've
And
had
were we
Kathy, we've
productive?
had Susan, I don't know who else they have. We had, well, you had somebody different, but he's not there anymore.
They have a new director of board services now.
Yeah.
So there's always that option. But
So could we just leave it to Chris to, if the Does the majority of the board feel like they want a facilitator, I guess, is the first question.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So can we just leave it to Chris to
Yes.
fill that? Okay.
Yeah.
And then once we have that, I mean, it's gonna be based more on their dates of availability then.
And that was, I guess that was a point that was brought up, about having, you're gonna have your retreat, but in July, so should we
can
have,
have it at the end of July?
should we have ours in August?
Oh, August is a tough
Since,
month.
since this meeting is
Yeah.
first, but.
Yeah. I don't care, what's,
Doesn't have to be, that's just my suggestion, because we're gonna have some free thought, so.
I'm not particular, it's just, I just was just thinking.
Yeah.
When are the other boards doing their retreats?
Corey Valley meets Thursday, we haven't had that conversation yet, so.
Wellsprings is, our next July meeting is gonna be our retreat.
So you're the second week of July as well?
July 12th.
Yeah. So if, I guess it depends when Corey Valley is going to have it,
Yeah.
and then after that.
I mean, the other option is that we do the SU board meeting at the end of the month as opposed to the top of the month.
And then, maybe having, this retreat first, might impact local retreats, just in a way, in a positive way of its own. So, I don't know, I just threw it out there.
Yeah, I think it's just it's gonna be based around who you can get and when they're available, so, I mean,
Okay. All right.
I have, there's no way to know that as we sat here tonight, so.
Do people want to do it?
Do our retreat?
I mean, no, at the end of the month, at the end of July, instead of at the beginning?
Well, maybe Chris could just let us know within the next week, kind of what availability is for a facilitator, and we could go from there. Maybe they could provide dates July and August, and we could look and see.
Because it's not the 5th, it's the 12th?
No, ours is the 5th.
5th.
Our next meeting's the 5th.
Okay.
Yeah, the 12th was Middletown.
Be daytime reading.
Well, it would depend on, we've done it on Saturdays before, and we've done it at, 11 to,
I think summer is booked for me already,
so.
at least on the weekends.
So once we move off our regular meeting dates, that's when we hit problems trying to find who's going to be around. One person might be out that week,
Yeah.
because I do believe people will schedule around a regular meeting.
Okay,
So my goal would be to try to
Try
find a
to find it for
facilitator
the
around
5th.
July 5th.
okay,
And then if worst case scenario, then we have to look at other options. But
Okay.
I think it's just, I know in the past, it's
yeah, I know, people
more
are
to find
building out.
dates in July and early
Yeah.
August. So.
Let's shoot for that.
Okay, so let's go for that, and you can shoot an email out, and it either is or it isn't. Okay,
And then we were meeting at West Rutland School.
Correct.
As of last meeting, that's what we had decided.
We could still meet here.
We can still meet here.
Early
Yeah,
July,
okay.
we won't, this room will still be,
here.
okay, so.
Okay.
Not West Rutland,
Yeah.
you'll be here.
Condition.
Unless you want, we could be here, as I said, it depends on what the board wants to do, so.
Are these air conditioned ducts?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with air.
Yeah.
Always.
Even in the middle of the winter, I think.
Actually, this room is so cold that you might want to bring a
Yeah,
light
sweatshirt,
jacket just
yeah.
in case.
Yeah, we shut the heat down.
Okay, new business, VSBA policy service contract, and I'm gonna throw that over to Eric.
Well, I just realized that the contract was supposed to be in the material, so everyone to read. I didn't see it, but.
Oh, that's
So
okay.
we had previously, the executive committee talked about potentially having, the VSBA has a policy service contract service where they'll come and they'll review our policy manual, both required policies and recommended policies. And they go through it and then they make recommendations. They look for weaknesses and any policies that might be missing. And as we finish up our policies, I thought that it might be a good idea to have basically another second opinion, another pair of eyes, and so And that was supported by the executive committee, so I reached out to VSBA, and I spoke with Senator Kemah at the VSBA, and she kind of explained the process, and then they drafted up a contract. The fee would be, I think it was $1,500. It's $750 per manual, so it'd be $750 for required, $750 for recommended. And they also said that they could come to a policy committee meeting and kind of explain in detail, have more of a formal conversation. And part of that contract is, we supply the policies, a copy of the policy manual. And when they're done with their work, then they come and they will come to a policy committee meeting and make their recommendations. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I do think it would be good, just as, we've gone through this process for a lot longer than it should have taken. And, there's potential for some policies that, might actually benefit the supervisory union. And, maybe also the other way where there's extra policies we don't need.
Right.
So.
And I think there was mention that we could pay this from ESSER funds.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, the issue is when you have to amend, there's certain,
Yeah.
there's certain things you have to tie it to, and so that might be.
But we do have a surplus, so we could.
Yes. I would recommend utilizing surplus for this.
Okay.
I suppose that's true.
Okay.
You said you worked with it.
So questions, comments? George?
Will they have some advice on policy maintenance ongoing after they suggest changes?
Yeah, I think they're gonna recommend based off what we currently have. And then, it'd be our responsibility to, maintain any new updated policies and required policies. So it's basically currently to what we have. And I also explained that the policies that we're working on currently would be included. So, if you look at some of the policies here, for example, these policies, I've gone through a first read or anything going through committee that's not yet adopted yet.
They would still look at that.
I would say, well, this is what we're working on. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would think when they come to the meeting, George, you certainly could, ask them questions about, how they, recommend doing maintenance on the policies or how to break it up so it's not such a tedious process that we've kind of pulled our hair out at for this so far.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I agree. I mean, I think going forward next time, it's a different
Yeah.
process.
But I would think if they're gonna come to a couple meetings, they're certainly gonna, answer a couple questions for you. So, yeah.
Do you recommend them only coming to the policy committee, or do you recommend them coming to give their findings to the board?
Well, I think that I'll just say, as this board, we've created the policy committee to be responsible. So I would think that if other members wanted to join, that meeting as part of the public, you certainly could. But I would think that that would be the appropriate place for them to come. And I mean, you're the people that are invested in the policies and sending them forward to us.
So I did invite her tonight, but I think, and I don't know if there was another something else going on, but
Yeah.
she did say ask about coming to a policy committee meeting, so I invited her to our next policy committee meeting because I think there's a level of informality and more casual talk.
Yeah.
Is basically what I think they're looking for.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I would certainly join the meeting just, as a member of the public, just to hear what they would have to say when
yeah.
they're going to attend.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be informative.
And that's this month, just by coming to this meeting, it's just going to explain the process.
Yeah.
I think when they're done doing their whole review of our policy manual, then, that might be a committee meeting to attend if you really want to hear it.
Yeah.
Also note that policies that they don't review are policies that we've developed on our own, and we do have some. I guess not recommended, but suggested policies are they don't review those either. So there may be policies that not even looked at.
Okay.
But-
Questions?
Yeah.
Thoughts about doing this?
Do we need to approve the contract before the first meeting?
Yeah, I mean, we would, if people are in favor, we would take action this evening to approve to authorize the contract, so.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good idea. It's always a good idea to get another.
Okay,
I'll move to approve the policy service contract then.
okay. So Eric makes a motion to approve the policy service contract. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were or if you were just late to the.
I am opposed,
Okay.
on the record.
Motion passes by majority. All right. Board work, executive committee. I think part of this, I don't know, Chris, do you want to?
I was asked to place this on, I guess there was something we wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I just had I like to ask questions. Okay, so I'm new. Could you tell me the history of how the executive committee came about instead of using the entire board? Why an executive committee was created when the board is so small in the first place? I guess that's my question.
So there was an executive committee long before the merger of this, and I don't know, maybe your district didn't do that, but our SU has always had an executive committee, which are board chairs. And originally, one of the primary reasons was when we used to have to sign contracts, look at contracts for oil, things like that, items that were fluid about for the SU. It continued on. It's been ongoing since we merged for the executive committee. So a lot of times the executive committee, the executive committee is board chairs, and it will be conversations with the superintendent. The executive committee also sets we had we call it a grievance, I can't even remember, it was a while ago. We sat for that. When Bill came to the executive committee first to discuss and I'm just using examples so you know, about the special ed program in Poultney. So it's a lot of informal talking about things before it comes to this board.
And I guess that's what I have the question about. It's like, when I went back and reviewed it, we got 17 minutes of Bill. That's a big and a huge, with an hour with the executive committee and 17 minutes with the board. And I just thought, wouldn't it have been better to bring it to the board for 40 minutes so that they could have gotten, because I felt like he kept saying, well, I got to do this really quick. And yet, at the end, and like I said, this is just a conversation. It is not making, it's bad. I want to have a conversation about it. That's all. So I just thought something as big as that, $390,000, $24,000. And I know it's all grants. $24,000 with a building. It would have been, I thought, nicer to bring it to the board so that the guy didn't run through 17 minutes of trying to do it. We did a lot of conversation after, but it would have been better to do a more of a presentation to the board, because we are a board, instead of just bringing that to the executive committee. That is all I'm saying. I'm just asking a question about, sometimes I think with, it's not like we're doing thousands of kids either. We're doing schools. I'd like to see more conversation within the board than within the executive committee. That's just my opinion. And it's not a critique against the executive committee or anything. It's just my opinion.
And I think if you go to the GRCS website, you can see the bylaws.
Yes.
No, the GRCSU board bylaws. And
Yes, it's in there, and it's also in the, but it doesn't say that you can't have more people to come. Maybe it would be nicer to have each school represented, as well as the board chairs, so that, sometimes bringing in a few more people to talk about the stuff, it might be, and again, it's not a critical, I'm not critiquing.
I think that the essence of the executive committee when it first started was that while minutes and agendas are kept, they are informal conversations with the superintendent, with the assistant superintendent, about suggestions, proposals, those kinds of things. So the executive committee, isn't taking action on their own.
Nope, I know that.
So, I don't know. I think that it works well. I think that during COVID, we, just like every other SU, had it set up and were very efficient and cohesive, and that it was certainly a way that it kept everyone in the loop about what was happening when things were changing, not just daily, but sometimes hourly.
I think the primary objective is that the executive committee will meet in times where it's impractical for the full board to meet, and the executive committee can handle supervisory issues.
Right. But again, when you go back at that, was that an impractical way to meet? Because we couldn't meet to discuss that huge, that's big. This is to put together that kind of a program. And I was totally for it, but I think it would have been nicer, my opinion, to bring it to the full board rather than having it informally with the executive committee. And I don't know if you have a problem with it, but it would be, I think, something to consider, to think about, maybe having somebody from the schools as part of it, because there isn't anything in the bylaws that say you can have an extra person from another school or in the legislature, there's nothing in there either. And again, if that's not what the executive committee or the board wants to do, I have no problem with that. I just wanted to have a conversation about it, that's all. Okay.
No, and I was just saying that's my standpoint, was that's why it primarily exists, but I get what you're saying, so.
Thank you.
I think we need to remember that really the board's responsibility is to give the superintendent direction. It's the superintendent's job to really work through the minutia of what's going on. I thought Bill's presentation was more than adequate, and we really don't need to get off into the weeds, because that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is fiduciary,
Right.
and the reason for the fiduciary responsibility was presented by Bill in more than an adequate way.
In your opinion. Okay.
Be reinforced by the superintendent, who has ultimate responsibility for it. So I think we need to make sure that we don't try to manage beyond what our responsibility is. And our responsibility is really to just be responsible to the superintendent.
Correct, and I agree with that, and I voted for it because I think it's a great program. All I'm saying is that I would have liked it to be a little bit longer, and
my point is that it didn't need to be longer because it really isn't our responsibility, except for the fiduciary part.
it would have been nicer. That's all I'm saying, Mike. You have your
understand.
opinion, and I have mine. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, moving on. Policy. All the policies are for first read, so we have, and I think that any changes in the policies are in red, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so D4, volunteers and work study students. D10, renewal of personnel. D11, public complaints about personnel. F2, search and seizure of students' property by school personnel. F7, student athletes, clubs, and activities. H5, Title I, Part A, parental involvement policy. E10, fire and emergency preparedness drill. And E11, access control and visitor management. Now, the last two, are those, were those directly from what the VSBA sent down?
Yeah, I was just
Okay,
gonna
that's
talk,
what I
I was
thought.
just gonna talk about that because all the other policies except for, the last two, were done through the policy committee in May. But these last two were, everyone should have received the latest VSBA,
Newsletter.
warning or whatever it was, that special,
Memo, special memo.
yeah, and it basically stated that with S 138 being passed in May, these two policies are required to be adopted by August 1st. So, so that's why they're on there. I don't know if you want to speak about it at all. Chris and I kind of work together on.
No, like I said, we understand there, anytime after legislative session, there'll be, some pretty quick moving parts, and this is two of them. VSBA quickly was able to get some model policy. I know that in that same email that you all received and I'm sure read, did highlight about the procedural pieces that they'll be following up with some procedural aspects. Well, boards typically don't handle procedures, but I think there are certain cases where you'll see like the policy and procedure kind of are married, and I would expect that there's certain expectations that we have to do by law that they probably will lay out in procedures for us. That's whatever procedure we adopt, we have to have these elements in there. And I'll just say, like, around the options-based, we did make this switch in our schools last year. I worked with Rob Evans and Vermont School Safety Center, so we have these options-based protocols and drills in place already. It's just going to be around messaging and communication with families 24 hours in advance and how we handle that. But so we'll wait to see what it looks like. So
The only thing I'll add is on E11, because this wasn't reviewed by the committee at all. If you look under administrative responsibilities, number 2, there's an optional piece that was in the model policy. We would need to decide tonight whether to keep that, change that, or remove it.
Okay. So just to remind everyone, the way we're going now, if there's any changes that need to be made to these, we want to change or make suggestions here before they go out to districts, or are we not doing that?
So, yes, I would say
Okay,
that we would need to make changes tonight because,
All right, I just
well,
wanna-
especially for these two policies. Otherwise, if we must adopt them by August 1st, if you want to have special meetings just to adopt these
No.
policies,
I don't.
that's kind of what.
Meredith?
Can you just clarify when you keep saying these two? I'm trying to follow along.
It's the last two policies, E.
Well, name them, give me the numbers.
E10 and E11.
Is that E10 as in Eric?
Yes. The fire and emergency preparedness, and E11, access control and visitor management.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I guess we could jump right to the last one, E11, and decide, do you want to include the optional piece in there, or do you want to strike that? Under 2, so 2A, optional, the district recognizes the need to leave blank structure unlocked as needed for the purpose or for agricultural, recreational, or any other reasonable practical purpose directly related to the school's mission or curriculum. I'm not sure why we need to leave any door unlocked. I mean, during the day. People that are exiting the building should,
I think there's situations that this applies to where maybe you have like a greenhouse or something like that.
Oh.
The students would go in, or
Sure.
if there's like a shop or something, I don't know, like.
so I don't think any of our schools have anything that's related to that. Do we, Chris?
No, I think some of our other schools may have, like I said, a shed, or, something outside that we really, I think we should be keeping locked on a regular basis anyways, just because
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
materials and things in there we don't want people getting into.
So is there any reason to not remove A?
I just want to comment that at Rutland Town, one of the exterior doors is unlocked during the day, but it's only the outer door. There's still another locked internal door. But I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a gray because it is an exterior door and it's not locked.
So we
But
should probably have that locked.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then they have to move the buzzer outside. So that's, because the buzzer's in the vestibule.
Yeah.
So it's not really following this policy correctly unless we kept 2A in.
So what we'd do is we'd have to then, if, with this policy, we'd have to speak with Greg about,
Moving it outside.
relocating things over the course of the
And
summer.
they're gonna be moving a handicap door anyway there, so we can probably do it at the same time.
Okay. All right, so do we have consensus to move the A piece?
I would make a motion to remove 2A.
Okay. So motion by Tina to remove the little a under 2
From administrative responsibilities.
from administrative responsibilities.
On policy E11.
Yes. On policy
On
E11.
policy E11.
He is an Eric.
All right. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Are there any other corrections, comments? Well, I don't really, not comments so much, corrections for the other policies.
I just saw two little formatting, or one formatting and on policy E10. E as in
Well,
Eric.
and E10, that might be just because that's just,
It was a part that was just added. It's just a different font.
oh yeah.
And then on policy
Number 5 is a different font than the rest of it.
F2, there was 2 little grammar that I just corrected and I can give to.
Okay.
Okay, so nothing substantial. I'm just-
Nothing meaning.
Okay, I'm saying, does somebody want to strike something from a policy before we send it forward? Okay, so a motion would be in order to accept the first reads and send them on to local districts.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Wait.
Okay,
Sorry, I was trying to find the policy that I had the question over, and maybe this doesn't matter, it's about visitors, volunteers, it's D4.
yep.
And I'm just wondering why we turned the last sentence, the screening process from shall to may require a criminal background check. I thought all of our people have a criminal background check.
That's because it comes down to the definitions. And so some of the definitions in the policy, what's that?
A visitor would not have a.
Yeah, and that's why it says may. So like, a visitor.
Okay.
Yeah. And we did kind of go back and forth on that too a little bit in committee. And there's procedures associated with this policy too. So from what I understand, some of those procedures would cover like an unsupervised volunteer to have, must have. Okay.
All right.
I just knew there was some sort of, yeah. And I had one other one, number 3 on D10, but I guess because, no, D10 we didn't say was boilerplate. It's about the board after hearing the recommendation, so it's the end of 3. The board after hearing the superintendent's recommendation shall make a decision to renew a contract or vote for non-renewal. And I know we've discussed this many times. I feel like this becomes micromanaging. It's the superintendent's job, period. About whether or not we're retaining this, we're renewing this contract.
I think this is more towards probationary teachers, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Renew, yeah.
Yeah.
I know this is a thing, but it points to micromanaging, and I don't feel as board members it's our place. We hire our superintendent. We don't hire our teachers. So just.
Well, the whole concept is probationary teachers. So this was a policy, I think if you recall, that was instituted by Rutland Town, at Rutland Town's, when Matt was board chair.
Yep.
That there
Before
were,
my time.
there were concerns.
And I think the concern is over making sure that that it's clear who's being renewed and not during that 2-year probationary process. But that doesn't mean that the board has the right or the job to make that decision.
Yeah, I think what had happened, if I recall, the issue was that there wasn't clarity who probationary teachers were, and probationary teachers were just sliding through the contract process, and that was had happened numerous times up there, and consequently, they met with the attorney and wrote this policy, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I don't know about the attorney part because I'm not in executive session or in the executive committee, but
it wasn't an executive committee. It was a whole board that did this.
Oh, I remember the board
Yeah.
meeting, and it was Matt. It was Matt drove that situation. I'm concerned about it.
Yeah. So I think like this year, Krista, I mean, in the past, we've certainly seen a difference. Chris is very good about separating out and letting us know who probationary teachers are. So I think that's, and I don't recall that we voted or did anything. We just took it as information.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall.
It was provided along with all the other contracts when we were looking at them, and that was just informational on there. We didn't make a motion to accept or not accept probationary teachers. Chris provided it, and we accepted contracts as presented.
Yeah, I mean, other than the last part of this policy where it says, you know, the board shall make a decision or vote non-renewal.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of it? You know, other than just to tell the superintendent to bring us the list of.
That, yes, because that was happening.
And was that the intent behind?
That was the intent, because teachers that are hired now are probationary teachers. And this extended it out a year too. It didn't always used to be 3 years.
But do they have a contract if they're probationary? I mean, he doesn't have to offer us a 2-year probationary teacher. He doesn't have to offer a contract. So technically, they're not under a contract if there's no contract extended to them, right? Is that because they're under contract till the end of that second year is over? If the superintendent doesn't offer them another contract, They have no contract, so they
Well,
have no,
you could offer them a third-year probationary
oh, you can do a
contract.
third year probationary?
You can
Yeah.
if the board, the association, the employee all agree to it. It's not recommended to do that, and we don't like doing that, or I should say, I don't like doing that. I think there is one exception during COVID that we had made. But, yeah, so I look at it in terms of in February, or, you know, I know that this year, I think it was at the March, just the way the meeting's laid out because of, but it was just to let individuals know, here are the first and second year, and if there was a recommendation for non-renewal, just kind of keep the boards in the loop of where we're at with that, so.
So that was the intent of the policy. I'm not saying one way or the other, I'm just, that's the history, providing my communicational part for the history of the policy.
But this, in Meredith, what she's saying is this policy does read that the board can say we're non-renewing that staff, and, you know, it takes.
And that's what,
and that would be
Probably
my,
down.
that would be my concern as a
Yeah.
board member, and not to say any, I think, like,
Right.
everybody here is professional and ethical, but a board member could just have a personal issue with someone and then use this power to then remove, and then
Sure.
when myself and the building admin would like to renew, but, so.
So
Can
we
we
could, we could
remove
remove
it?
this last part.
yeah, number
Yeah, that's what I'm
3.
saying.
Let's remove
Well,
it.
the last sentence or the last part where it says, the board, after hearing the superintendent's recommendation, like, remove from there all the way to the end.
Yeah, you could. Just take that off, and that takes away any board.
Well, in number 2, it still says that they're considered for annual contractual renewal by the board during the first and second year of employment. So you'd have to remove that too. It's almost like you just.
Well, everybody's considered for employment.
That's what I bring before, a licensed employee have to bring before the board for approval.
Yes.
So all
So you're
that's,
saying after
So we
employees,
do vote on
period.
it.
You do, and the board does have the
We can say
authority.
no
with
or
it.
yes.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we still vote on it.
we do vote on all contracts.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I think, and, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Meredith, but I think the concern is that it says, shall make a decision to renew or vote for non-renewal.
Exactly.
I think that's the big.
well, I mean, technically, someone could do that with any contract.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine removing it. It doesn't bother me at all.
I think,
It doesn't change what your level of responsibility is. So, is everyone okay with removing the last 2 sentences from the board down to personnel then, under 3?
So you're
Yeah.
saying from the employees, period, the board is where you're gonna start?
Yeah.
this. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so we'll remove that before it's sent out to the other boards or districts. All right, anything else, Meredith?
Good catch.
I think that's all I have in my notes.
Okay,
Thank you for bringing that up, Meredith.
Another thing was probably on work study versus internships and co-ops, but maybe that's all in the definitions again. I'm not even sure which one that is. You
D4
notice?
again.
that was D4.
Yeah, I might be being overly like, I think we're good.
Okay. All right, we're gonna go back to the motion by Linda to send these with the amendments for the 2 policies to local districts. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're at our second public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak to an issue that was discussed here this evening? Seeing none. We have on the agenda the next meeting for July 5th. We have no need for executive session, so a motion would be in order to adjourn at 8:44.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.